r/AskReddit asks, what is a weird hobby that you've been hiding from your family friends? I've been volunteering at a cat shelter for about a year and haven't said anything about it to my friends. It just feels kinda awkward because I'm a 19-year-old dude and most other volunteers are middle-aged women lol. Dude, I'm a guy and I volunteer at an elementary school to be a friend for at-risk kids. Not a lot of guys do it, so usually it's me and like 3 girls, but because they do same-sex partners I got a sweet 4th grade boy who loves basketball. It's always awkward at first when you're the only dude, but it shouldn't stop anyone. Edit. Well, this exploded. Thanks for guilting y'all, but the most important thing is that we get guys to be good role models for the younger generation. It's how we can turn society around for the better, one innocent elementary kid at a time. I've tried writing short stories. None of them are good enough to share. Put them away for a bit, then go back and read them after they've been out of mind for a good while, with fresh eyes. Either you'll realize they are good, or you'll see how you can edit them to make them good. Sewing. Not so much a weird hobby, but my family is pretty old-fashioned, aka really sexist, so as a man they would have a field day if they knew more than half the stuff my wife made for them was actually me. It's really relaxing, satisfying creating stuff, and I save a lot of money never having to throw clothes out. I also sew and am male. However, I tell everyone. I think my proudest moment was when my best friend and his wife asked me to make their kid a baptism dress, and we had a great time where we all worked together and I had them sew the easier parts. I collect micro machines. The classic originals from the late 80s. I have probably close to 1,000 of them and I keep them at work so my family doesn't find out and want to play with them. I fucking love micro machines. I'm still super pissed at the fact my color change one, if you dipped it in warm water it'd go from blue to purple, went missing one day and that was that. Shame you don't really see them around so much, right? I build virtual houses in The Sims to post on the gallery. I think I'm up to like 8,000 some downloads. Which is not that much, but yeah, I post often. On days off when no one's around I might post 5 builds in a day. I just find it super relaxing. I like to flesh everything out with little knickknacks so it looks like real people live there. So yeah, I'm an adult who plays Dollhouse. What about it? Same. I've never told my family. They wouldn't understand ... because I don't either, huh? It's just so fun. I've been practicing Mongolian throat singing for about a year now. I lived in a college house with 3 guys who were taking a music course. One of the first weeks of school the teacher showed them Mongolian throat singing. For the next 18 fucking months I had to listen to the shittiest throat singing quartet in existence. We would all be doing our own thing when one of them would start. The other 2 would join the cacophonous chorus almost immediately as that horrendous humming would fill the house. But wait, I said it was a quartet and that is only 3 people. Well, the upstairs neighbor had a big lab. I don't know if it liked the throat singing, or if it hated it, or if the dog just had to be the loudest thing on the block, but he would start howling almost immediately. Even with my tin ear, I could tell they were not a good harmony. Some days, at work, I'll challenge myself to only use my left hand, or never bend my right knee, or not use my thumbs at all. It started when I wondered to myself if I could still function normally if I lost an arm, and then escalated to all kinds of potential amputations or mobility losses. It's weird, I know, but I think it does help me see the world from another perspective, and be thankful for the functional body I have. I do this when I'm getting ready sometimes. Don't know if I'd consider it a hobby, but I think it's such an interesting thought experiment and also just shows you how much we take for granted sometimes. Online roleplay. Normally not erotic but super in-depth roleplay about fictional worlds and the adventure I have with people I normally don't meet. I've made friends from this and it's fun. It may not be the weirdest but it's abnormal at most. I miss that. I thought it died with AOL chat rooms. Where do you RP? I ended up writing and self-publishing a book a few years ago based around me and an old friend's RP characters. Learning Chinese. Waiting for something like a head injury car accident to pretend that's all I know somehow as a gag. Or maybe I'll just wait till we are at a Chinese restaurant. I didn't tell anyone for 2 years that I was learning Japanese. I felt like I was less likely to continue if I told people my plans to learn it. I listen to police fire scanners to and from work every day, and can understand everything on them. I know what type of responders get dispatched for what type of calls. I know which types of calls are most likely to be false, aka a waste of time. Also know which channels responders will be asked to respond on based on the type of call, at least here locally. I know which ones to get excited about, aka that's going to make the news later. The few times I have told people about this, I've said it so I can avoid major traffic accidents before everyone else knows about them. Which is true. But the real reason is that I have always wanted to be a cop, firefighter, paramedic, but no, there's not enough money in it for some of my other goals in life. Have you thought about being a volunteer firefighter? I don't know where you are in the world, but we have those here in New Zealand and it's definitely an option for someone who wants to do that but can't dedicate their whole life to it because you're right, the pay is shit. I have a lot of weird hobbies, but the only one I don't tell people about is that I talk to myself. A lot. Like, full-blown, never gonna happen scenario conversations for 30+ minutes at a time. Always have since I was a kid. I'd be embarrassed if I got busted talking to myself like a fucking lunatic, but I have worked myself through some personal shit on more than one occasion just by being able to say my problems out loud. Even if no one is listening. Honestly, I blame it on my ADHD, but what do I know? Talking to yourself is actually good. Stand-up comedy. I text myself funny anecdotes for my never gonna happen comedy set. Sometimes when I'm bored, haven't done it in a while though, I'll put on sunglasses and sit somewhere public that has a lot of foot traffic and watch people. It's absolutely hilarious and can be very entertaining at times. Airports are my favorite places for this. I get to airports extra early when I have a flight to just see all the people being themselves. People are hilarious, and interesting personalities come out when people are trying to get through security. Also it's fun to speed walk on the people movers and to ride the trams. That I rewatch all those cartoons that I loved when I was a kid but in English, so I can have fun and be nostalgic while learning language. This is such a great way to learn a language. Many ESL teachers always suggested this to their students. Did that all the time in middle school. I have written 2 books. I am currently writing a third. 2 are self-help books and 1 fiction. I haven't even told my fiancé about these, and the one I'm currently working on is How Not to Flip Your SH*T While Planning a Wedding. Working title, but you get the drift. I'll never publish them, just helps me work through all the thoughts in my head. You should publish those puppies. Self-publishing is pretty accessible these days on a small scale. I record myself reading books aloud. Like Berenstain Bears chapter books, Choose Your Own Adventure, Goosebumps, etc. I do the voices, edit out the mistakes, sometimes add music or sound effects. Then I listen to those recordings while doing household tasks, or especially when I can't sleep. Hearing my own voice reading helps me doze off like you wouldn't believe. Whoa, that's interesting. Most people hate their own voices, I think. Lego. I'm old as fuck. Lego is for $4.99. I'm a mom who's close to 50. I really like playing Fortnite. Maybe that's not so weird, but in my social circles hardly any women play video games, let alone one that is popular with kids the same ages as my children. If you don't do the things your kids do, you won't understand them. All the best parents I've been around will do the things their kids do and watch the shows their kids watch. Not necessarily fully take them on, but at least a little. The ones that enjoy it tend to have the best relationships, while the ones that do it just a little, like only with the child, to stay involved, are pretty good. The ones that think things are stupid and walk around saying, "I don't get it," tend to be the ones that have issues and rebellious children later down the line. Even if your kids aren't into it, immersing yourself in the same culture they're living in is a great thing. You do you. I have internal conversations with characters from my favorite shows, YouTubers, or people I know to help me make decisions. Like, I take their hypothetical advice, but I know I'm the one controlling what they say. It's hard to explain. This is something really quite common for people with autism and ADHD. Most people with these disorders are always practicing conversations with real or imaginary people, for real or imaginary reasons, where imaginary usually is known by the person to be imaginary. I quite often bring this up with people on the spectrum, because most tend to be quiet about it, even though all of them do it. Fashion and makeup. Growing up, I went through a tomboy phase. Regretted quite a lot. I was always seen as someone who didn't like fashion and didn't wear makeup. Now that I am becoming more comfortable with myself, I am experimenting with these things and I quite like them. As one former tomboy to another, I feel you on this one. When I first started on makeup, I was worried my family would tease me for it because I was always one of those "I don't need makeup because I'm not like girly girls" types, until I realized I actually really enjoy it. These days I'm a lot quicker to tell people, everyone's allowed to play with makeup if it makes them happy. No need to regret being a tomboy, we were just trying to figure out who we were. Just gotta be good to ourselves and others. I rap. It's definitely explicit content. My family is super conservative, and they have no idea. It started as a thing I did just for myself, but I put a demo online anonymously last year and it got fairly popular, and now things are escalating. I've started getting some good placements and features, and it's getting more and more difficult to hide it. Eventually they'll find out, and I'll have to have that awkward conversation. It's the one thing that I have as an outlet, and the only thing I really enjoy, so I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Edit. Thank you, internet strangers, for your kind words and gifts of silver. That's awesome. Music is a great outlet, and even just listening to rap is super therapeutic for me. Red heart card suit. Keep doing you. I voice act. My family is mostly non-American, and don't know the first thing about voice acting. They've caught me looking like I'm talking to myself doing funny voices, and pretty much thought I was nuts. Since then, I've been keeping this hobby away from them. It's not something I tend to do to get the bills paid, as I lack equipment of any kind. I just do it for fun. I like altering my voice and singing songs in different voices. I also just like to be dramatic, lol. Programming. I feel like they would expect me to become the next big thing or something, while I just want to make funny little games to troll my friends. I get, you should make an app like insert startup. That's been in the news recently a lot from my parents. I'm a data scientist with no experience in app or front-end development, but sure, why not? I create stories in my head. Subject matter varies and I never write them down, but believe me, I remember all of them. Sometimes I quietly talk them out to myself, both to make sure it makes sense and that any dialogue I come up with sounds right. I used to fall asleep at night when I was younger by telling elaborate stories in my head. I'd always continue the one from the night before, usually adding more. But as I got older, sometimes I'd just tweak or add details to whatever I had been working on internally the night before. There was a brief stint where I did attempt to write this down at about 13. But you can imagine the quality of writing a 13-year-old produces. I roleplay with one of my bestest friends. I haven't told my parents or any of my other friends about it, and when I bring it up I call it a book online I've been reading. This roleplay has been going for about 4 years and the world we made is so in-depth, it's basically torn from its source material and could be its own standalone story. I keep multiple quotes in a document on my iPad, as well as multiple facts about the characters like birthdays and even how many concussions they've had. My love of prepping. They call me a nut and a conspiracy theorist as it is. They don't need to know. I work in the solar business and deal with a lot of preppers. They spend ridiculous amounts of money to live off-grid. However, they're always calling us to help when they have an issue, so I always wonder what would happen if the event they're prepping for occurs and they have an inverter or battery problem they don't know how to solve on their own. Songwriting. Only people who are closest have a clue that I write songs sometimes. And now all you strangers know. So in a way, you guys are closer to me than my family. I've always wanted to be able to do this. I can get lyrics a lot of the time, but I don't have the instrumental ability to put them to music properly. Candles. I love the light flickering from them and they help me relax. Try the wood wicks, they really do crackle like a fire in a fireplace.